Hey everyone, it's Vale here at Mobilitics, and today we're back with another tier list video for you for low-elo. This one is an updated version of our patch 12.11 tier list, and actually this patch changed the meta a lot more than people realised. Tanks got massively buffed, and those nerfs to specific champions last patch like Taliyah and Gwen made a huge difference. So let's see how this reflects in the tier list and how those champions who got adjusted actually got affected. Before we get started, do not forget to click the link in our description to head to our website and see the full low and high elo tier list for yourselves. We also have builds, guides, combos, and plenty more for each and every champion, so don't miss out. Let's start off with the top lane then, and in the god tier we have Dr. Mundo, Olaf and Garen. Swain, Quinn and Set move from S down to the A tier. Aatrox, Teemo and Jax all move down from A to B. Tahm Kench jumps up to the S tier, and Volibear and Akshan both move up one too. Aurelia and Tryndamere both got buffed this patch as well, but they just aren't quite good enough, especially at lower elo, so they're going to stay in their respective tiers for now. So when Olaf got nerfed this patch, it was safe to say that he needed it. However, he's still strong enough to keep his place in the gold tier. In patch 12.10, he had a 53.8% win rate, and it dropped down to 52.3%. Olaf's ability to destroy lanes in the early game and just snowball stupidly quickly makes him impossible to beat when he gets fed, especially with that unstoppable ultimate. One of the other main reasons he's so OP though is because of that armor shred on his Q absolutely melting down tanks, which we are seeing a hell of a lot more in patch 12.11. In patch 12.10, Tahm Kench's win rate in the top lane was around 49%. In patch 12.11 though, his win rate was now 53.3%. That is a massive jump, and those buffs in combination with those tank item buffs too means this guy was a serious winner with this patch. TK seems to be a very difficult champion to balance. I mean, Riot wanted him to be a support a few patches ago, and it's just not working out there whatsoever, unless he's in a Senna Tahm pairing. But when you do buff him, he just gets broken again in the top lane. Talking of champions that are difficult to balance though, Gwen is the definition of this. She did have a spicy few weeks after those buffs and those durability changes, but after 12.11 she's fallen down significantly again. This seems to happen so often with this champion. One patch she's insane, the next patch she's rubbish again. Rinse and repeat. Gwen's win rate has always been a bit skewed, so those numbers aren't quite as important for this champion, but at the end of the day she's dropped about 4 to 5% across all ranks, which is a pretty telling tale. Moving into the jungle now, and in the god tier we have Volibear, Rammus and Skarner. Skarner and Nunu both move up to the S tier after a significant increase in their performance after the last patch. Wukong remains in that S tier despite receiving nerfs last week, but Lilia did take a bit of a hit and moves down a tier, alongside Vi, Nocturne and Echo, who all move down from S to A. Kindred, Kha'Zix and Olaf all move from A to B, and Ivern falls off into the C tier as well, alongside Taliyah, whose nerfs just hit her way too hard. Xin Zhao also got some buffs this patch, but they aren't quite enough to bring him up a tier just yet. Lee Sin has had a pretty tragic win rate for a while now, and usually that doesn't reflect the champion's potential because a good Lee will always find a way to be impactful, especially in the competitive scene. However, right now this guy is seriously struggling. We've kept him around in the B tier for quite a while in our low elo tier list because if you can play him, he's still viable. But the fact is, even after those buffs last patch, he's just not good enough at the moment. Even with a 2% increase to his win rate this patch, he's still hovering around 47%. There are so many reasons why Lee Sin is struggling, but one of the main reasons is that the strongest junglers and most popular ones in the game just have such an easy time against him. They clear faster, they out-duel him, out-gank him, and just have a way less punishing experience overall. Therefore, they're the reasons why we've moved him into the C tier this week. Master Yi has been sitting comfortably in the S tier for low elo for as long as we can remember. Even with some patches making him a bit weaker or some patches making him absolutely broken, he's always been part of the furniture. Well, how the mighty have fallen, and this week he moves all the way from S to the B tier. Master Yi lost a whopping 4% win rate since this patch, and those nerfs to him and his itemization have really made a big difference. Plus the fact that tanks with lots of CC are everywhere at the moment, and they can just prevent him from playing the game altogether. Talking of those tanks though, Rammus, Nunu and Skarner have all had a huge positive experience after patch 12.11. Those buffs to tank items and nerfs to other broken picks and items have really made the difference for these guys, and they're all back in pole position in low elo. They're fairly straightforward to pick up, easy to play and incredibly impactful, and when they're in a good spot they always excel in those lower ranks. Let's jump over to the mid lane now, and this is probably the role that was least affected by last patch after a huge shift to the meta here in 12.10. In the god tier here we have Viktor, Veigar and Zilean. Diana and Vel'Koz move up to the S tier and Echo moves into the A tier. So Taliyah's nerfs last patch have made an incredibly big difference, and in all roles she was played in she has fallen significantly. Taliyah was one of the most broken champions in the game since that mid-scope update, and now she's likely going to be back to what she was beforehand. Extremely niche and only good if A, you're very good at her, and B, it's the right draft for her. She has lost around 4% win rate in both the jungle and the mid lane across all ranks, and this means she's likely really going to fizzle out now if she doesn't get any compensation buffs. Veigar was also nerfed in 12.11, but unlike Taliyah, he's still one of the best picks in that mid lane to go for. He's always been such a hugely contested pick at lower ranks due to the fact that he's easy to play and he's very simple to be impactful on. You've got infinite scaling to excel in those longer games, you've got a point and click ultimate that deals tremendous damage, and you've got large AoE, CC and damage to spam throughout the course of any game. Veigar's problem was always assassins, and right now they just aren't very good, so this means he's just going to scale for free in almost all games that you play him. Ryze got buffed too, and funnily enough they actually made a pretty huge difference, giving him around 3 to 4% increases to his win rates across all ranks. But as you'd expect, it's still ridiculously low at around 45 to 46%. This poor guy is just screaming out for another rework, but no matter how many times Riot try and update him, he's just impossible to balance, because those pros will always be able to abuse him. If you don't miss a minion, you farm like a god, you scale up and you have insane macro, Ryze is and will always be one of the best champions in the game. But to the general player base, he's just not good enough. What do you guys think they should do about Ryze? Another rework? I'm not sure. Let us know in the comments below. Sylas' buffs in 12.11 have definitely made a massive improvement, and he desperately needed them. His win rate shot up by around 2%, and now he's in a fairly balanced and healthy position. Sylas is always going to be better at those higher ranks though, and people with good mechanics and significant game knowledge will always be able to utilise this champion better. He is going to stay in the same tier for now, but as the game changes over the next few patches, he could be one to keep your eye on. And if those other busted champions continue to get nerfed, he may well start to come out in a very good position. Making our way down to that bottom lane now, and let's see how the AD carry tier list is looking. The only god tier champion we have for low elo this patch is Jhin, but the S tier consists of Veigar, Twitch, Misfortune, Lucian and Ashe. Jinx, Caitlyn, Kai'Sa and Sivir all moved down from A to B. Aphelios also got buffed, but as you'd expected, he's nowhere to be seen just yet. So Zeri was absolutely broken when 12.11 first hit the rift. From day one of this patch, she was instantly abusable with a 55% plus win rate, which when you consider the fact it was about 45% the day before is a little bit unbelievable. Thankfully, Riot did a good job of addressing this one quickly and hotfixed it immediately, and this did solve the problem straight away, and she's now in a fairly healthy spot overall. Which is something you rarely say about Zeri, as she's usually either broken or useless. For the time being, we've moved her into the A tier for low elo after those hotfix nerfs, but she's still popping off a lot more at higher ranks. Kog'Maw was one of the biggest winners from patch 12.10, and he was pretty much everywhere and doing exceptionally well in all types of games. He got some much needed nerfs in 12.11 though, and these changes have really brought him back to reality. Kog'Maw's win rate in 12.10 in low elo was around 53.5%, and now in 12.11 it's gone down to just under 51%, so we moved him down a tier from S to A. Overall, this champion is still very strong though, especially with the right support and in the right team comp, and you just can't underestimate his ability to take down those tanks, which we are seeing a hell of a lot more of this patch. The long range AoE damage, the scaling and the sheer DPS this guy brings in the late game is not to be forgotten. Samira has been a bit of a weird one for a while. She's had periods where she's very heavily contested and others where she just can't quite do her job, and after a bit of a fall with 12.10, she got some buffs in 12.11, and due to this she gained around about a 3% increase to her win rate. Right now she's sitting in a pretty healthy spot across all ranks, and she's gone back to that champion that is fairly comp dependent, but always has the opportunity to pop off in the right team fight. All she needs is one good stacked up ultimate into a team of half beaten enemies and she'll just kill them all and reset her way to victory. Samira is a super difficult champion to beat, and when she's in control and starts snowballing, you're really going to struggle against her. Let's finish off with those supports, and in the god tier we have surprise surprise Janna, Renata and Zilean. Taric got some pretty juicy buffs last week, and they've actually made him a little bit broken with one of the highest increase in win rates in recent patch history, with the exception of those like Zeri who got hotfixed instantly. Taric's win rate went from approximately 47% to 54% in the space of a week, and that alone just shows how strong this guy is. Taric enjoyers have been shouting from the rooftops about how good he is for a while, but their voices have been lost in the wind. Now though, especially with these buffs, people are starting to hear them and jump on the fabulous hype train. A good Taric player is pretty scary, and now is the best time to become one. Senna's nerfs were long overdue, and this champion is one of the most publicly moaned about champs in the game right now. She's got sustain, poke, range, scaling, and an incredible amount of damage too in the late game, so yeah, I guess you can understand some of the criticism. Well, these nerfs have made a slight difference, but she's still in a very good spot. She's obviously not quite as broken and maybe not the best support in the game now, but she's still sitting pretty comfortably in our S tier. We expect this to change more when the assassins make a return, which is probably going to happen in a few patches time when Riot have gathered more information about the meta and how to buff the lethality items without breaking the game. Either way though, for now, Senna is still one of the top supports to abuse. Rakan's buffs have definitely made a difference to this guy, and he was unfortunately struggling a bit previously. The changes have brought his win rate up from around 46% to almost 50%, which is definitely a huge improvement. Rakan is a lot of fun, and if you haven't played him yet, I'd recommend giving him a whirl, but he certainly does take a bit of practice. He's got tons of mobility, utility and CC, and his engage, catch potential and follow-up crowd control is pretty awesome to play with. I do think it'll take another couple of patches before we fully see the return of engaging and tankier supports. But Rakan is kind of in that middle ground of a utility support but also an initiator, so he's kind of slowly but surely getting into a good position again. The brand nerfs were definitely welcome, and he has been a bit busted since patch 12.10 dropped with all of that burn damage and DPS. The nerfs to him and his passive plus legendaries have seen him fall off a bit, and in higher ranks he's not having as much fun right now. But in low elo he's still more than capable of carrying games and burning his enemies to death with ease. Brand's pick potential, AoE damage, scaling and burst just make him very difficult to beat, and even if he's a bit behind, he just lobs all those abilities into your team before he dies, he's going to do a ton of damage. If you are a Brand main, you've probably felt the impact of those nerfs, but still know that he's in a very good spot, and let's be honest, at least people aren't banning him as much now. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this patch 12.11 updated tier list video for low elo. Don't forget to head on over to our website at mobalytics.gg to see the full tier list for yourself, and of course get all of that useful information about all of these champions like runes, builds, combos and plenty more. So check it out and don't miss out. I've been your host Vale here today at Mobalytics, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.